We'd prefer if you left. Amanda's voice cut through the glittering Christmas party like ice, her gown catching the chandelier's light as her eyes swept over me with disdain. My hands were still marked with grease from helping a stranger on the road, and my simple dress showed every wrinkle from the December cold. I had come late to my son's in-laws' mansion, hoping for warmth, but met only judgment. My name is Margaret Sullivan, I'm 64, and this is how I ended up humiliated at the grandest holiday party in Greenwich. It's a story about pride, family, and how kindness to a stranger would later change my life. Months earlier, I was living quietly in my small apartment, stretching my pension after losing my husband Frank 5 years ago. Then, David, my son, called. "Mom, Amanda's family really wants to meet you this time. They want you at their Christmas party." I should have been glad, but Amanda had always kept me at arm's length. The Whitmans were old money, obsessed with appearances. David even warned me, "Just dress nicely, you know how they are." I agreed, thinking it might finally let me be part of his new world. But Amanda had already decided who I was. David's poor mother. The wedding years before had proven it. I wore my best navy dress, yet still felt invisible, introduced vaguely as his mother from New Haven. Only Eleanor, Amanda's grandmother, stood apart. With her sharp eyes and quiet authority, she noticed everything, filing details away without saying much. "Your grandmother seems very sharp," I'd said to Amanda during the reception. "Grandmother keeps her opinions to herself mostly," Amanda answered cautiously. "She lets Dad handle business." That word, "lets," stuck with me. It hinted at quiet power, not weakness, but wealthy families operated by rules I barely understood. After the wedding, David and Amanda settled in Connecticut, closer to her relatives. Our calls grew shorter, our visits rarer. When I did see them, David often seemed like a translator between two worlds, mine and Amanda's. At dinners, I was placed at the far end of the table, treated politely but excluded, while conversations revolved around deals, vacations, and clubs I knew nothing about. David tried smoothing things over. "Mom, maybe ask Amanda about her charity, or Patricia about her garden club." But Amanda's efforts to keep me at arm's length always won. That's why, when David invited me to the Whitmans' Christmas party, I was shocked. Maybe Amanda had softened. Maybe Eleanor had urged her to. I should have seen the warning signs. The week before, I treated preparation like an exam. I spent 2 days searching for the right dress, something elegant but affordable. At Nordstrom Rack, a kind saleswoman found me a burgundy gown marked down from $200 to $65. It wasn't designer, but it looked refined. I even bought shoes that hurt my feet and a small purse to match. David checked in twice, his voice tense. "Mom, remember? They're traditional. Keep conversations safe. Please, don't stir anything up. Amanda's nervous." The message was clear. Don't embarrass us. The night before the party, I practiced answers in the mirror, trying to mask my small life in polite words. I even asked my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, to watch my cat. "Big event?" She smiled. I admitted it was my chance to finally be accepted. She squeezed my hand. "Just be yourself. If they don't see your worth, that's their loss." But being myself hadn't worked in 3 years. Maybe this time I needed to become what they wanted. I set my alarm for 8 a.m., planning each step, hair at 10, dress fitting at noon, arrival at 2:15 sharp. I fell asleep, imagining Amanda's surprise when I appeared, elegant and poised. How her parents might finally see me as worthy of their son. How Eleanor might actually speak to me directly. I should have paid more attention to the weather forecast. That Saturday brought one of those infamous Connecticut winter storms, ice hammering against the windows, roads turned into skating rinks. My salon canceled, the dress shop was flooded, and by noon I was still in my robe, watching freezing rain coat everything. At 12:30, David called. "Mom, are you still coming? Roads are rough." I heard Amanda in the background. "Tell her the party's still on. Everyone's already here." Everyone but me. Still, I told him, "I'll be there." So I did my own hair and makeup, hands trembling slightly as I applied lipstick. In the mirror, the burgundy dress almost made me look like I belonged until I saw my only winter coat, practical and plain. By 1:30, I was on the road, creeping along with other cautious drivers. Everything was fine until the narrow road to the Whitman estate, where I spotted her, an elderly woman stranded beside a luxury car, silver hair wet with ice. I could have kept going, but something in me wouldn't allow it. I pulled over. "Need help?" I asked. She turned, elegant even in distress, blue eyes sharp rather than helpless. "The engine just died," she said calmly. "Frank had once taught me basic repairs. Peering in, I saw corroded battery terminals. Do you have any cola?" I shouted over the wind. She blinked at me. "Coca-Cola cleans corrosion. Trick my husband showed me." From her designer handbag, she handed me a small bottle. We stood there, two women in formal wear in an ice storm, as I poured soda onto the battery. "You're going to ruin your dress," she noted. "Already am," I muttered, scraping with my car key. Sometimes helping people matters more than appearances. While we waited for the cola to work, she asked where I was headed. "Christmas party," I admitted. "My son's in-laws. Very formal affair." "And you stopped to help a stranger?" I shrugged. "I couldn't leave you stranded. Family parties happen every year, but ignoring someone in need would haunt me forever." Her sharp gaze softened at that, and for the first time she smiled. "Try it now," I said. The engine roared to life. "You're very kind," she told me. Not many would have stopped, especially dressed like that. I glanced down. Coat soaked, hair ruined, grease across my dress. The elegant image I'd worked so hard for was gone. "Maybe I should just head home," I muttered. "Nonsense," she replied firmly. "If people don't value kindness over vanity, they're not worth knowing." She handed me a card. "Eleanor Whitman." My heart skipped. "You're Amanda's grandmother," I whispered. "I am. And you must be Margaret Sullivan," she said, studying me closely. "I've wanted to meet the woman who raised such a good man." Shaken, I followed her car to the Whitman estate, realizing the irony. After weeks of preparation, I was arriving not polished, but disheveled, completely myself. The mansion gleamed with Christmas lights as valets hurried to take cars. A young valet blinked at Eleanor. "Mrs. Whitman, we weren't expecting you. Your driver said the roads were too dangerous." "I drove myself," she answered coolly. Another valet eyed my modest sedan with thinly veiled confusion. Inside, under crystal light, my reflection made me cringe. Ruined hair, faded makeup, grease stains glaring. Patricia Whitman descended the grand staircase, her face tightening. "Eleanor. And Margaret. How unexpected." The word dripped with judgment. "Margaret helped me with car trouble," Eleanor explained smoothly. Quite resourcefully, in fact. Amanda swept out from the parlor, flawless in a designer gown. Her smile faltered. "Oh my goodness, Margaret, what happened?" David hurried to my side, torn between worry and embarrassment. "Mom, are you okay? You look like you've been in an accident." "I'm fine, honey, just helped with some car trouble." "You could have called Amanda sighed, her voice edged with irritation. "Now you'll need to freshen up before meeting everyone." The parlor fell silent as we walked in. Conversations froze mid-sentence, eyes turned, whispers spread. This was the nightmare I'd feared, being judged, found lacking, and quietly dismissed. Amanda leaned toward David, voice pitched just loud enough for others to hear. "David, this is embarrassing. Everyone's staring. Maybe she should go home and change." Before David could answer, her father stepped forward. Richard Whitman radiated the authority of old money. "Margaret," he said smoothly, "we're glad you came. But perhaps you'd be more comfortable if you left to freshen up. We'd understand." The meaning was obvious. I didn't belong. Heat rose in my cheeks, and I was ready to excuse myself until Eleanor's voice cut through the room. "Actually, Richard, before she leaves, I think everyone should hear what Margaret did tonight. Kindness is rare these days." The atmosphere shifted. Suddenly, every guest was listening. "Margaret didn't just help with car trouble," Eleanor announced. "She ruined her own appearance so I wouldn't be stranded in dangerous weather. That's the kind of character worth celebrating." I stood dripping on their ornate rug, feeling exposed. But Eleanor pressed on. "How many of you would have stopped? How many would put kindness above appearances?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Amanda's face soured. Richard tried to intervene, but Eleanor lifted a graceful hand. "I'm not finished." She turned to me. "Margaret, would you mind telling them what you did?" I swallowed. "I used Coca-Cola to clean the corrosion on her battery. My late husband taught me that trick." Murmurs spread. Some even laughed. "Coca-Cola," Eleanor repeated thoughtfully. "Practical, resourceful, selfless. Exactly the kind of thinking that built this family's fortune, the willingness to get your hands dirty to fix problems." Amanda's voice cut in, brittle. "Grandmother, perhaps we should let Margaret—" "Before what, Amanda?" Eleanor's tone was polite, but unyielding. "Before she embarrasses you? I think Margaret looks like someone who values others above herself, and that is beautiful." Warmth spread through me. For the first time in years, someone in this family had defended me. "Now then," Eleanor continued briskly, "I believe Margaret deserves to enjoy this party just as she is. After all, authenticity is so much more valuable than artifice." Richard cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Of course, Mother Margaret, please make yourself comfortable." But I could see the calculations happening behind his eyes. Eleanor had just publicly backed me, and Richard knew better than to challenge her outright. Guests drifted back into conversation, but now the glances I caught held curiosity instead of disdain. With a few words, Eleanor had shifted my place in the room. "Thank you," I whispered. She smiled, and for a moment I caught the flicker of strategic satisfaction. "My dear, we're just getting started." Within an hour, word of her defense spread through the party. People who had ignored me before now leaned in eagerly, asking about my adventure helping Mrs. Whitman in the storm. I told the story again and again: freezing rain, corroded battery, Coca-Cola. Each time I repeated it, the shame over my ruined dress faded. Instead, I felt oddly proud. "How clever," one pearl-draped woman said. "I wouldn't have known where to start." David hovered close, still worried. "Mom, are you sure you're okay? You don't have to stay." "Actually, I'm enjoying myself," I admitted. "Your grandmother-in-law is remarkable." He gave a small smile. "She notices everything. Amanda doesn't realize how involved she truly is." Amanda eventually joined us, her smile tight. "Grandmother can be very protective of people she takes a liking to." From her tone, it wasn't meant as a compliment. "Margaret," Eleanor called across the room, "come, there's someone I want you to meet." She introduced me to James Morrison, the family's attorney. He shook my hand warmly. "Eleanor tells me you have excellent instincts for solving problems." "I just helped with a car," I said, still baffled. "Sometimes simple solutions are the most elegant," Eleanor replied. Before I could ask what she meant, dinner was announced. The dining room was large enough to swallow my apartment, chandeliers gleaming above polished silver. Eleanor placed me at her side, next to a retired ambassador. "Margaret helped me today," Eleanor told the table as the first course arrived. "She showed the kind of practical wisdom and selflessness this family was built on." "How refreshing," the ambassador's wife said warmly. "So many talk about helping, so few actually do it." All through dinner, Eleanor kept drawing me into conversation. She asked about Frank, about the way he taught neighborhood kids carpentry for free. "That's a true legacy," she said gently. But across the table, I noticed Amanda's worried glances toward her father. Richard's jaw tightened each time Eleanor praised me. Something was building toward a confrontation, and I had the uncomfortable feeling I was about to be caught in the middle of it. After dinner, Eleanor suggested we move to the library for coffee and brandy. The room looked like something from a history book. Walls of leather-bound volumes, heavy chairs, and portraits of unsmiling ancestors. "This," Eleanor said as she sat regally by the fire, "is where the real conversations happen." The group was smaller now: Richard, Patricia, Amanda, David, a few close friends, and James Morrison, the attorney, who positioned himself where he could see everything. "Mother," Richard began, trying for calm, "perhaps we should leave business until tomorrow." "I've already reviewed the reports," Eleanor cut in. "Quite concerning." Richard bristled. "Profits are up, growth is steady, my restructuring has worked." "Financially, yes," Eleanor replied smoothly. "But where are the values this company was built on? When did we last give back to the community that supported us? Mother, community projects are expensive, Richard muttered. It's not expense, it's responsibility, Eleanor said, walking to a portrait above the mantel. The painting showed a younger version of her, sharp-eyed, determined. This was me in 1969, when I started Whitman Industries with a $5,000 loan and a rented storefront. I was 23. Everyone said women couldn't build businesses. I proved them wrong. The room froze. Amanda paled. Grandmother, what are you saying? I'm saying I built this company. Not your grandfather, not your father. Me. Every contract, every expansion, every success came from my vision and work. Harold was a wonderful husband and teacher, but the business was entirely mine. Her words dropped like stones. Richard shifted, clearly uncomfortable. Mother, we all know you were important in the early days. Not important, Eleanor corrected, her voice steel under silk. Foundational. I am Whitman Industries. Then she turned to me. Margaret reminded me tonight of who I was, and still am. Someone who fixes problems, who helps without hesitation. The realization hit me hard. This wasn't casual talk over brandy. This was about power, legacy, and a family that had rewritten history. Eleanor Whitman wasn't just Amanda's grandmother. She was the true founder, the force behind it all, and she was ready to remind everyone of it. You built the entire company yourself, I whispered, the pieces clicking into place. Not your husband or father-in-law. You. Eleanor smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen. Smart woman. Yes, I built Whitman Industries from scratch. Harold supported me, but the business was mine. The silence was crushing. Amanda looked faint. But everyone always talks about Grandfather Whitman's business legacy, David said, his voice confused. The founding vision, the family tradition. I let people assume Harold had built the company because it was easier in those days, Eleanor said evenly. Back then, a woman-owned business meant constant scrutiny, suppliers doubting you, clients refusing to trust you. It was simpler to let Harold be the face while I did the work. Richard's face darkened. Mother, you can't just— Can't what? Tell the truth about my own company? Her voice rang with authority. Remind this family that their comfort exists because a woman valued hard work and dignity. She rested a hand on my shoulder. Today, Margaret showed the very qualities this family was built on: resourcefulness, sacrifice, and character above appearances. Amanda bristled. Grandmother, this isn't fair. We can't all be car mechanics. It's not about cars, Amanda, Eleanor replied firmly. It's about values. When faced with helping someone or protecting yourself, which do you choose? Her words pressed down on the room. I thought of every slight I'd endured over 3 years, dismissive smiles, whispered comments, exclusion. Eleanor continued. Margaret has been part of this family for 3 years, treated like an outsider, like David made some mistake. Isn't that so? Amanda stammered, but Eleanor's raised brow silenced her. When was the last time you asked Margaret about her life? About her interests? David, you saw it and stayed quiet because it was easier. That's human, but it isn't acceptable. She crossed the room, lifting a folder from a grand desk. James and I have been preparing this for months. I intend to take a more active role in company operations. Richard shot up. Mother, the company is fine. Financially, yes. Morally, no, Eleanor said, her smile sharp. We've become exactly what I swore we'd never be, a business that values profit over people. The room erupted, but Eleanor raised her hand. Silence fell. Her eyes found mine. Margaret, I have a proposition. I want to offer you a consulting role at Whitman Industries, head of community engagement and values. 6 months, $75,000 to start, with the potential to grow. My jaw dropped. Around the room, faces mirrored my shock. Eleanor, I don't understand. It's simple, she said, sliding documents from the folder. We've lost touch with the values that made us strong. You remind me of them. You solve problems, you treat people with dignity, and you don't need recognition to do it. That's exactly what this company needs. This is insane, Richard exploded. Mother, you can't create positions based on car repair skills. Eleanor's gaze could have frozen water. Richard, under your leadership, our employee satisfaction has plummeted. Our community involvement has disappeared, and our giving is down to the legal minimum. Margaret is exactly what we need to restore our values. She faced me directly. The role would focus on building community partnerships, guiding corporate responsibility, and shaping a workplace culture that puts people first. You'd work closely with me at the start. My head spun. Just hours earlier, I'd been worried about surviving a Christmas party. Now I was being invited to help reshape a company. But I've never worked in corporate consulting, I stammered. You have what matters most, Eleanor said. Empathy, problem-solving, integrity. Skills can be taught, character cannot. Amanda's voice cracked. Grandmother, this is sudden. Surely Margaret needs time. Actually, I interrupted, surprising myself, I'd like to accept the trial role. The words felt right, like they'd been waiting years to come out. Eleanor's smile lit the room. Excellent. James, draft the agreement. David looked torn. Mom, are you sure? It's such a big change. I met his eyes, seeing not just worry, but pride. For 3 years I tried to fit into this world. Now I have a chance to help make it better. How could I say no? Richard cleared his throat. And my role? You remain CEO, Eleanor said evenly, but with restored oversight and renewed commitment to our founding values. This isn't a takeover, it's a correction. Her gaze swept the room before settling back on me. Margaret, you reminded me tonight that wealth isn't about numbers. It's about lives touched, people helped, and good done with what we have. Standing there in my stained dress and ruined shoes, I felt something shift. I hadn't just found acceptance, I'd found purpose. Eleanor Whitman, the woman who built an empire from nothing, had seen in me what I'd nearly forgotten: strength, value, possibility. For the first time in years, I knew I belonged. The outsider who walked in was leaving as a partner in rebuilding something meaningful. Tomorrow, I would begin the most important work of my life. Some Christmas parties change your outfit. This one changed my entire future. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.